everyone, I'm Hillary with Dominion Tea, and today we're going to talk about cream versus milk and tea. So first thing, history lesson. Why did this habit start? Well, we get to blame the British. So when tea first came into Britain in the late 1600s, early 1700s, it was heavily taxed. And the way it was taxed is that the tea house would brew first thing in the morning, and they were taxed on how much was brewed. Well, guess what? If you're the poor guy who walked in afternoon for that cup of tea, that tea was brewed 6-7 hours ago. So it had a huge amount of tannic acid in it. So to make it drinkable, they would add milk to it. And so that's one piece of it. The second piece of it is at the same time that tea was coming inbound, porcelain was coming from China as well. It was exceedingly expensive. So it was only really available to the aristocracy. That was until a wonderful Portuguese monk managed to document how porcelain was made in China, and those letters made it back into Europe. And the British tried to start making porcelain. And sure enough, they kind of figured it out, got it out on the market so that your everyday household wife could afford it. Only problem is it cracked. And so they had a small issue. How do you stop this porcelain from cracking? Now, anybody who knows good porcelain knows good porcelain doesn't crack. Well, you're talking about you're talking about early 1700s. They didn't have thermometers. So the monk had no idea how hot the fires were that China was firing their porcelain at. And so this was a trial and error problem. Well, it just so happens at roughly the same time, you have the Northern Chinese take over kind of the emperorship of China. And what you need to know about Northern Chinese is very much like the Mongolians, yak was a huge part of their diet, and they would put yak milk in everything, including tea. And so the British diplomat brought back kind of his observations of the new Chinese emperor putting milk in tea. And this kind of made it out into the circles. And the porcelain guys figured out, wait, if we tell you to stick your milk in first, our porcelain stops cracking from the boiling water. And sure enough, it became a huge marketing campaign. So when the ladies bought their porcelain, they were told milk first, then the tea in. And it preserved the porcelain. Well, it took 30 years until the porcelain guys and technology caught up with them, allowed them to actually fire porcelain that stopped cracking. At which point, they could stop their marketing campaign, but you've had an entire generation drinking tea with milk, and it's stuck and has stuck ever since. So the British do milk, right? The Americans prefer cream. Let's talk a little bit about the differences here. Whole milk has only got a 3% butter fat. About 3.5 is what's dictated by the FDA to qualify as whole milk in the United States. The butter fat in cream is 36%. So this has a huge difference in its interaction with tea. For your purposes, it comes down to personal preference. To the tea itself, it actually is going to affect mouthfeel. So we're going to do a little bit of a demonstration so you can see this visually. I'm going to tell you it's not as striking as you'd want it to be, but that's okay. It's not supposed to be, because what you're really fiddling with here when you're putting either milk or cream into your tea is you're playing with the astringency. And what that is how the tea feels inside your mouth and whether it dries it out or not. So using good old Multi Assam, which is one of the most astringent teas out of the Assam region, we're going to pour in the same amount of milk and cream and let you take a look at it. For your purposes, just keep in mind, if you're adding that milk and cream because you don't like the taste of the tea, let me give you a piece of advice. If you need to keep your black tea, brew it at a lower temperature. So drop it down to about 195 degrees. What you will find is the astringency will soften across the board. And so you will be able to drink it without the milk and cream. But if you use the milk and cream because you like the mouthfeel of it, absolutely go for it. There is a debate in England, and it's very funny. Do you put the milk or the cream in first or second, right? So we all know why they put it in first, protect your porcelain. Well, that's no longer necessary. Whether you put it in before or after is kind of a personal choice. Here in America, you usually find it's after the fact, but those are our own habits. So let's take you through the demo so you can take a look at it. And then after that, go explore. All right, so to help you see the difference between kind of milk and tea, or milk and cream and tea, we're going to use the exact same pot of tea in both bowls. And then I'm going to measure in here a ½ tablespoon, which is roughly the equivalent of one of your shelf-stable creamers, into each of these. So the first one gets the whole milk. And then all you're going to do is sit here and watch the color change. And the fun part of this, more than anything, is that it looks almost identical. But there's a difference, and you can kind of tell as we go. And that, again, goes back to the butter fat that is in these, right? The huge difference in butter fat is going to change your color. That's how you tell the difference. But more importantly, it's going to affect your mouthfeel, which is why you need to decide which one, if you're going to use it, you actually want in your tea. We hope you enjoyed learning more about tea with us. Hit the subscribe button so that you can be notified when we add more videos to our channel. And check out the highlighted videos to learn even more about tea. And last but not least, you can check out all of the teas we talk about in our videos at dominiontea.com.